Welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay, well let's learn English together. And welcome back to the studio, people. Welcome to the beginning of the week. Welcome to Monday. Glorious Monday. Wonderful Monday. No, marvelous Monday. Yes, it's Monday. The day before Tuesday. The day which is 2 days after Saturday. The day which is 3 days before Thursday. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Monday is where we are. Monday is where we find ourselves. Today, in case you hadn't noticed, is Monday. All right, so now that we've sorted that out, hopefully there's no confusion in your minds now. Well, no confusion about what day it is. Well, there might still be some confusion in your mind, but that's confusion about other things, not about what day it is. All right, people, it's the start of the week. You did get that, didn't you? Yes, good. I wouldn't want there to be any confusion about that. So, yes. It's the start of the week and we're back here, back again after a weekend of fun and excitement. Well, I hope we're back after a weekend of fun and excitement. Did you all have a spiffing weekend? Did you all do good stuff? Yes, great. So, as I tried to communicate earlier, this is Monday, the start of a new week, and we find ourselves back here in the studio, ready to start a new week. And that's what I'd like to talk about this week. Has anyone been keeping track of the weeks? No? Well, I don't blame you. We're getting up into the higher numbers now, but never mind all that. The thing is that this week is week 90. Yes, I know. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Yes. But there's no time for us to stop and congratulate ourselves. We have to get on with the week. But what do you all remember about weeks that end in a 5 or a 0? Yes, that's right. Every fifth week, every week that can be divided by 5 with no remainder is a mini revision week, where we have another look at some of what we've seen in the past 4 weeks. So, this is week 90, and if we divide 90 by 5, we get 18 with no remainder. And so, it's time for our mini revision session to begin. I said that we needed to have a roundup of the tenses we'd already seen before we started on this new grammar front. And that's what we were doing. We looked at the different tenses that we know and love. We looked at the present simple, the tense we use when we're talking about things which remain or stay the same. Things that don't often change, like names and gender, places where we live and jobs. Things like that normally use the present simple, don't they? My name is Gav Duncan. I'm a man. I live in Hungary. I'm a teacher. Now, what else do we know about the present simple? Well, where are the danger areas? Where do we have to be careful? When do we have to exercise caution? Well, we have to be a little bit on our guard when we're using the verb to be. That's a little bit, well, different, isn't it? I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are. I mean, it's not really difficult, but we have to remember to conjugate the verb correctly. We have to pay attention to what we're doing when the subject of the sentence is the first person singular or the third person singular. But that's not too hard for us to handle, is it? No, no matter what people say, it's not too hard for us to handle. Handle? Okay. So, we can handle that, the verb to be in the present simple tense. All right. Now, what about the negative? Well, that's pretty simple too. All we have to do is add that word. You all know the one I mean. The word we always see when we're talking about negatives in English. Chimpanzee! No, not chimpanzee. Sorry, that was just my little joke. I couldn't resist. No, as we all know, The word we need when we're making negatives in English is the word not the word chimpanzee. Chimpanzee doesn't feature in English grammar. I'm chimpanzee, a woman. See? It just doesn't get the message across. Not is much more useful. I'm not a woman. There? See? Much better. Okay, all right. So we know that when we want to make a negative sentence using the verb to be in the present simple tense, we have to add the word not to the mixture. All right. Now, who remembers how we do it? Well, as I'm sure you all remember, when we're making a positive sentence using the verb to be in the present simple, we start with the subject or the subject pronoun and then follow with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be, am, is, or are. So, if the subject of the sentence is, say, Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi, then we either start with his name or with the correct subject pronoun, which in this case is he. After that, we follow with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be, he is, and then we follow the verb to be, the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be, with the rest of the sentence, whatever that is. Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi, he, is a South African political leader. Okay. Now, we also know that we all love to shorten, to abbreviate in English. So, if we're using the subject pronoun, it's more usual for us to say he's instead of he is. All right, so that's the positive sentence. Now, what about adding not to the mix to make the sentence negative? Where do we have to put not? Yes, that's right. We put not after the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be. So is changes to is not. And again, because we all love to abbreviate, it saves time. It's more useful or more usual for us to say isn't instead of is not. Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi, he is not, isn't a South African political leader. All right, now before we go any further, let's just highlight something. Let's just underline something. Let's just remind ourselves of something connected to abbreviations. Do you all know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you all do, but it won't hurt to have another quick look, will it? No, of course not. Now, what I'm talking about, of course, is the fact that with most subjects, when we're using not with the present simple, we can abbreviate in two directions. We can join the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be to the subject and follow with not on its own, or alternatively, we can leave the subject on its own and join the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be to not. Now, as I'm sure you all remember, and as I'm sure you all know, there is something that we can do with the majority of subjects, with the vast majority of subjects. In fact, if you feel like a statistical analysis of what we're talking about, we can do this with 87.5% of the subjects. Yeah? What about that, huh? Yes. And who remembers the one subject where we can't do this? Yes, that's right. The only subject where we can only abbreviate one way using not is the first person singular. When we're making a negative sentence in the first person singular using not, we can only abbreviate in one direction. We can only join the subject to the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be. We can never join anything to not. Not has to remain on its own. So we can say I am not, and we can say I'm not, but we can never say I amn't. That's all. But with the other subject forms, we can abbreviate to the left or to the right. It makes no difference. So pick the one you like most. All right, so what next? Well, what about the question form? How do we make questions when we're using the present simple form of the verb to be? Well, what do we all remember about how we form a question in English? Yes, that's right. Something changes with the structure of the sentence, doesn't it? Yes, with a positive statement, we follow a certain pattern. Subject, or subject pronoun, verb to be, correctly conjugated, and then the rest of the sentence. But when we want to ask a question, we swap the positions of the subject and the verb, don't we? Okay, and that means that in this situation, when we're dealing with the present simple form of the verb to be, that we're going to start our question with one of three words. We either start our question with am, are, or is. If we're asking a question about the first person singular, if we're asking a question about ourselves, if the subject of the question is I, then we're going to start the question with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to be in the present simple, and that form is am. So, just as in a positive statement where the subject is the first person singular, we say I am. When we want to turn that into a question, we have to swap the positions of the subject and the verb. I am becomes am I. Similarly, if the subject of the question is the second person singular or any of the plural subjects, then we're going to use the correct form of the verb to be, in this case, are. You are becomes are you. We are becomes are we. You are, the plural you, becomes are you. And finally, they are becomes are they. So, what else do we have to be careful about? Well, we have to remember that when we're asking questions, we always have to put a question mark at the end of the question, just to make sure that everyone realizes that we're asking a question. But then, we always remember to do that, don't we? Yes, of course we do. The sort of people who forget to do that are the sort of people who can't tell the difference between the letters G and J. The sort of people who confuse the pronunciation of nation, national, and international.
JVC, JVC, JVC as JVC.
So, yes, as we all know, we don't fall into that category, do we? No. Well, I certainly hope that we don't. All right, now where were we? Oh yes, of course. What about question words? We haven't thought about what happens when we use a question word in our question, have we? Well, this is very simple too. If we're using a question word, a word like what, when, why, how, where, who, one of those, then we remember that the question word goes at the very beginning. If we're using a question word, then we start our question with that word and then follow with the verb and then the subject. So that means that although we can ask the question, is your scooter fast? And we know that we have to start with the correct form of the verb, in this case, the third person singular form. We're asking a question about a scooter, it's the third person singular, which means that we start with is, and then follow with the subject, in this case, your scooter. We also know that if we decide to ask a different question, this time using a question word, then we start the sentence with the question word, and then follow the question word with the correctly conjugated form of the verb, and then follow that with the subject. What color is your scooter? Question word, verb, then subject. Oh, and don't forget the question mark at the end. And we're done. Yes, our first lesson in this week's mini revision has come to an end, and we're done for the day. So I'm off home, and it's time for you lot to go about your business. Yes, get those chores out of the way. Hoover the living room, water the plants, clean the windows, and if you're in the lucky position of not having any chores to do, then just relax. I'll see you all tomorrow for another mini revision session. Until then, until that time, have fun, people. Have fun. and a coffee. Or a tea. It's up to you. And that's all. See you tomorrow. See you later. www.mediaclick.hu. Bye!